Okay.
Hello, Tim. Good morning from Scotland and good evening to Australia.
That's right. A long way away.
Long way away. Thank you for taking the time. It's really great to talk to you in person now after we had been working together to get the book out with your essay, which we're very happy about.
Right.
So your name is, and I first stumbled across that, I must say, your name is Timothy Murray, and I first thought, oh, he's probably Scottish or at least British, so we'll see where I can find him. But, and do I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes. I'm Murray, and
Murray.
my ancestors come from Scotland and also from the west coast of Ireland.
I was going to ask, are there family connections to Scotland?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yes,
Oh,
because obviously here in Britain, the name Murray is quite popular, even to those who are not into tennis. So, but you live in Australia and you work in Australia most of the time.
most of the time, although over the years I've worked a lot in England and in Europe generally, and in the United States of America. But at the moment, really, it's mostly in Australia. But I've just got back from 2 months in Europe.
Ah, very nice. Yeah. So actually, you
Right.
being based in Australia made a
Mhm.
nice twist possible because in our book, we're obviously, oh, this is not really in focus, obviously talking about science and imagination, and the essay we were able to include now, your essay, and
Mhm.
and the first when we first published it, we could say contributions from 3 different continents are included.
Good.
Because we have some
Good.
very lovely essays, more on the imaginative side, from authors in the United States. We have Professor Vijay Sata from India, and of course
Mhm.
Europe. But with you
Yep.
now, we could change the text on the cover and say 4 continents.
Oh, yes. Well, that's good.
Okay, so that's a bit of a boasting here. Anyway, may I, just to make things a bit easier, read the short description, the short introduction to you from the book. And if there's anything
Yep.
wrong, I hope not, because it's already in print, correct me. So Professor Tim Moray, and then there are several abbreviations to your name.
Mhm.
About all the societies you're a member of, obviously, is a member of
Mhm.
the Department of Classics and Archaeology, Faculty of Arts, University of Melbourne, Australia. He was
Yep.
chair of archaeology at La Trobe University between 1995 and 2015, and has taught at other universities such as University of Leiden, Cambridge University, the Sorbonne, and many others.
Yep.
Murray has published numerous books, journal articles, book chapters, served on editorial boards of many journals and book series. So yes, you have been very busy, and I gather you are still very busy. So what is something you are currently working on you might want to share with us?
Yes. Well, actually, I've just been writing about Falconer again in a review of I've done a book review for the Norwegian Archaeological Review about the book that's been published concerning the discovery of high human antiquity in the late 1850s. And that review basically talks about the importance of Falconer's work because it's a subtext to a lot of the discussion is that Falconer really hasn't had his due paid to him by the archaeological profession. They've mostly supported people like Sir John Lubbock or Sir John Evans or Prestwich, who were all working with Lubbock, with Falconer, but working on different sorts of things. And Falconer is really an unusual person in that he spanned so much that it's very difficult for people to comprehend a lot of what he did. So that's one of the things I'm working on at the moment. And apart from the fact I'm writing an entire archaeology of Australia for Cambridge University Press, which should keep me busy for a while.
So that's Lord Prestwich then. Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because just for us to remind ourselves, and some will remember, that Lord Prestwich's wife, Grace, born as Grace Milne, is obviously Hugh Falconer's niece. So
Yep.
there's and Prestwich and Falconer were friends. So and this is how
They certainly were. They certainly were. But she didn't marry him until Falconer died. So
yeah.
I think it was important that she stayed with him until his death.
Yes. Oh, she certainly was more than the housekeeper. She was more than the secretary. She was really getting into the science of geology, wasn't she?
Oh, yes. Oh, she was. And I think she was a very valuable person for Falconer to discuss things with, because he wrote to her in a way which really makes it pretty clear that he saw her as being a kind of equal, somebody who would understand a lot of the issues that he was being concerned with, especially when he was in India.
Yeah. So I could imagine she plays a certain role, maybe not too big, but a certain role in your work on Lord Prestwich as well, because she probably assisted her then husband as much as she assisted Hugh Falconer before Falconer died.
Oh, I think she would have. And I think Prestwich was the kind of person who would have welcomed that, as distinct from, saying she should be in the kitchen or perhaps just in the parlour and not have anything to do with matters scientific. He wasn't that kind of person either. And so I think she was really fortunate in finding two men who were prepared to, how should I put it, recognise her intelligence and her capacity to make a contribution.
Yeah. So there's a nice family connection coming up here. Very nice.
Yep.
So you write in your essay that it is the result of long-running preparations for a biography of Hugh Falconer. So and one can see that. I mean, just the list of your literature it's pretty impressive. Well, two questions actually. A, what gave you the idea, and B, what made you give it up?
Give what up? Give up the book?
Give up the full project of the biography.
Haven't given it up.
I'm glad to hear that. Excellent news.
Still working on it. I mean, I'm sure you understand that having book contracts means that you are tied hand and foot until you get books finished.
Oh my goodness.
I have two outstanding book contracts which I'm trying to finish, but at the same time working on the Falconer book. But as I haven't sent a draft or an outline to any publisher, I'm kind of free in terms of how I approach it. But yes, I'm very much still involved in working on Falconer. And I'm just hoping that within a couple of years, I'll be able to really get to it.
This is, oh my goodness, this is unexpected and wonderful news. Thank you, Tim. We are completely with you here. If you need any help here from Forest, please let us know anytime.
I will. I mean, you understand that somebody like Falconer, it's so many different people all in one. And the issue really is how to capture the sense of somebody like Falconer, who is just really quite encyclopedic in terms of the way he approached stuff. Have you ever read anything by Stephen Jay Gould, the biologist, the evolutionary biologist?
Yes, of course, yes.
Yeah, well, he's written quite a bit about Falconer. He admires him hugely, or admired him hugely, because he is dead now. And a lot of the discussion is about theories of evolution. And I'm sure you know that there was not a conflict, but a disagreement between Falconer and Darwin about evolutionary theory. And for a long time, Falconer thought that theories of evolution that Darwin was producing couldn't really explain the history of the fossil record of the Sewaliks, which he had established in India. And the story of how Falconer and Darwin kind of came to an accommodation is a really interesting one. And as Stephen Jay Gould mentions, it really, his solution really kind of presaged the theory of punctuated equilibrium, which Gould and Niles Eldridge produced in the early 1970s, which is really quite a remarkable development in evolutionary theory. So Falconer is as relevant today as he was in the 1850s.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
quite
came,
extraordinary.
mhm, very extraordinary. I came across this reading Golding, and it's not, it can happen that your colleagues from 100 years ago get honored, but this was especially nice to read, that actually Falconer had the idea 100 years before it became popular about we're talking about the punctuated equilibrium.
Yep,
And
that's right.
so, yeah.
He did, and I think it speaks volumes for Stephen Gould that he was prepared to acknowledge that. But it also tells you a lot about the fact that Falconer could stick to his guns. I mean, this is a really quite remarkably revolutionary thing for him to talk about. But yes, he did. And but yes, he was prepared to acknowledge that Darwinian theory, as proposed by Charles Darwin, did explain some of the context of evolution, not all of it.
Yeah. So I'm personally, I'm not an archaeologist. I keep learning. I'm a historian amongst other professions. So it's not too difficult for me to get into these topics, just the details. I need to keep learning. It's all very exciting. And
Okay.
so when we think about Hugh Falconer's life, one of the reasons that it came up for me why he is not as well known, as popular as other scientists from the Victorian era is that he did not sit down to write this one big book that has his name to it, that can be read later on in schools or wherever. So he wrote a lot, but for example, his notebooks, no one knows where they are. We had Victoria Harridge, a paleontologist, come to Forest, and she searched the Falconer Museum. She searched in many other places. So even his own notebooks, as yeah, thin they might have been, cannot be found. And that to me, and I might be wrong here, but that to me is one of the reasons why Falconer isn't that well known.
I think, yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right. If Falconer hadn't died in 65, I've little or no doubt that he would have published the book you're talking about, because I mean, as you know, the paleontological memoirs are really a collection of previously published stuff with some of Falconer's notes involved, and that was really, I think, an attempt by his friends to mark the fact that Falconer did really make a very significant contribution. But yes, the fact that he didn't write the book is probably the reason why he's not as well known to science as Lubbock or Evans or Prestwich or indeed Huxley or any of the other ones who were around at the time. But I think it's probably the role of books like the one you've edited to bring him to contemporary interest and to establish just how important what he was doing. And his own life is so interesting. I mean, he really was an extraordinary man. What would have happened if he had lived for longer? Almost certainly he would have, as I say, made a really significant contribution to the history of evolutionary theory. And that's certainly the argument that Stephen Gould makes.
Yeah. So if there's a scientist coming to not necessarily to Forest, but coming across Hugh Falconer, is there a topic? Is there some area of research you would recommend that someone starts with or goes into to get to know more?
That's a very good question. There are several areas of Falconer's history that I think are really interesting to take a closer look at. I think the work he was doing in Gibraltar and in Sicily is worth looking at. His relationship with Somerville, who was, as I'm sure you know, a very, very important figure in terms of the history of females in British academia. But she was an extremely influential person. You remember she was living in Italy.
Italy. Yeah, I met in Italy.
Yeah. I think those two things are things we know very little about. There's just the odd published paper from Falconer and from Busk about what was going on, but there had to be more, right?
Yeah.
Those things are true. I think also we still know very little about what Falconer was doing in India. And I mean, we know he went to various places and he botanized and he collected fossils and he did all that sort of stuff. But, we only ever hear about Falconer through other people, the fact that they met him or that they were fighting with him or whatever. And I think we need to know more about what he was doing and what, if you like, imperial science was doing in India at that time. Because, as you know, he did some remarkable things there and formed really close relationships with people like Probe to do all the field work. But he spent a lot of time in Tibet and in present-day northern Pakistan. Now, what the hell he was doing there, wandering around looking at stuff, I don't know. And I'm not sure whether I've never read anything about other people looking into that.
Yeah.
Look, I can sit here for half an hour or so and give you if I was supervising PhD students, I'd be looking for them to take a much closer look at what Falconer actually did. Right? We don't know about how the Sewalik fauna were collected. How did he do it? We know he dug up a lot, and it was all shipped back to England, and it's in the Natural History Museum in London. But the specifics of all of this stuff is not very well known at all. And I must say there are areas which I'm still trying to find out about. But I've got to get back to London to the Natural History Museum and sit down in the archives for a lot longer, I think.
Yeah. And
yep.
We know very, very little. And as you point out, we know most of it through other people, not from him himself. And then, of course, it's always colored through their experience and et cetera, et cetera. So we never really get the picture. It's quite a huge puzzle still to be put together, definitely.
I think so. And it's also the fact that if you're looking at Falconer through other people's eyes, then really what happens is that the importance of that person is greater than Falconer. Because why would you take the trouble to spend years looking into the work of John Evans if it was largely secondary to the discoveries of people like Falconer? And that's one of the reasons why. I mean, it gets lost to science because it's in the interest of all the people who are writing about the other people in working at that time to bring them forward as being much more important. Yeah. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. And you pointed out very clearly in your essay that studying Hugh Falconer's life and work also sheds a brilliant light onto the scientific disputes of the time. So you have the biography, but at the same time, you get a whole panorama of what actually happened in those decades in natural science and all related sciences.
Oh yeah, and you get also a very clear idea of the difference between, if you like, the public face of the history of science and what actually was going on.
Yes.
And with Falconer, you can see all of the hatreds, the lies, the chicanery, all that sort of stuff that was going on by people who are, how should I put it, still very widely respected in the scientific community. And Falconer, as I know you know, didn't step back from a fight, and he was very keen to hold up his end, particularly, with Lyell, but perhaps more important with Huxley. And that disagreement between Huxley and Falconer was potentially extremely dangerous for the importance of evolutionary theory. And that's been, if you like, well and truly covered up by historians of science since then. It is a very, very dangerous disagreement because Falconer was right and Huxley was wrong. And you don't say that sort of thing these days.
Yes, and then it's very nice to read the letters you actually included in your
Yeah.
text. So
Yeah.
it's always a question, is it better to have just a short summary, but having the actual texts written by the scientists at that time, it really gives a very, very good kind of sense of what was going on in their work, including the personas, clashing. So that's really very nice to read.
Yeah, I think so. And look, it's nice to know that scientists are human beings too, and that they're not. I mean, Darwin was a very complicated person, and I'm sure Falconer was too. But it's that sense in which you're looking at the start of something which has since become so important. It's absolutely the way in which people see the history of life on Earth, right? And there they are in the 1850s arguing about fundamentals that would never ever happen again until Gould and Eldridge in the 1970s with punctuated equilibrium. And it really is extraordinary to see how something becomes, if you like, truth, almost like religious truth, and all the corners that get cut, the deals that get done, all that sort of stuff, and the suppression of dissent to make sure that a single account of the history of life on Earth triumphed.
Yes.
That is really something very important, because, look, I'm sure it's happened in lots of other situations, but, the history of evolutionary theory is not as simple as people like to make it out.
Yeah. And
these are real people, Christiane. They're real people with real failing. Yeah?
With the usual shortcomings, yes,
Yep.
very understandable, but they persevere. And as I said, I'm really thrilled, and I'm sure everyone here in Forest, when they're is thrilled to hear that you continue digging out all these exciting informations for us, and continue working on them. And maybe if you manage to get to London next time, there is a bit of extra time. That would be really, really lovely to allow you to come up here to Forest at the beautiful Moray coast, and we can continue that conversation. That would be really fabulous, Tim.
It would be. I look forward to it, and as I say, it's look, there's so much more life in this one, and I really appreciate the fact that you are working so hard to keep Falconer's memory alive.
Oh, thank you.
And I wish you all the best for your endeavours in that. And it's too important to let go, and I think you're absolutely right to fight for it.
Oh, thank you very much, Tim.
Right.
And you get a huge applause from Forest. We'll keep in touch, and hope to see you in person sometime soon.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.